escape reality. Escape reality. No need to worry. Escape reality. Escape reality. Tut tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Tut tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Let's get girly. Early. underestimated and boxed in. All judgmental labels spread us thin. We can run away to another place. No need to worry, you'll be my safety. We can run away to another place. No need to worry, escape reality. This world by storm. I couldn't want anything more. Just hear me whisper that your dreams lie here with me, and let the stars above serve your remedy. We can run away to another place. No need to worry, you'll be my safety. We can run away to another place. No need to worry, escape reality. It's a syndicate at night, blasting playpen in the daytime. Goosebumps rise at 9 and settle back down at sunrise. Cut the cord at noon and say you'll be back soon. Tut tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Tut tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. It's some booze fueled teenage ground, running from pub to club like bloodhounds, from 10 till 6 a.m. and no one knows how to stop them. Hold the drinks I want and help the one who's gone. Tut tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Tut tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Let's get girly. Girly. Let's get girly. Girly. With a hangover till 10 p.m., I'll say I'll never go again. Tut tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Tut tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Let's get girly. Girly. Let's get girly. Girly.
Hey guys, welcome again. First of all, I'd like to apologize if you can hear the bad music on my background. My neighbor decided to be a grand douchebag tonight and they're having karaoke night in the middle of the street. I didn't anticipate it, but I'm just hoping now that my microphone is able to filter them out. If not, I'm so sorry. Anyway, if there's gonna be any other problem like before, if there will be times that you can't hear me, please comment it so I can do something about it. I think there's a little bit of delay with my stream versus what I'm doing live. So I'd really appreciate it if you're gonna comment it down if something's wrong with our stream. Anyway, so let's start. So this is lesson 2 of our BIM process introduction course. If you remember, on our last session, we tried to introduce ourselves with BIM. What BIM is, what it's not, a quick overview of the role of BIM in the industry and the opportunities. We have a replay on it available on your course page if you would like to review or if you haven't watched it yet. To continue where we left off, today we're going to be covering two main topics. First is the BIM industry, where we'd be talking about the roles and responsibilities of our BIM specialists, the softwares, applications, levels of maturity in BIM, dimensions of BIM, and the level of development in detail. And second, we'll look at the BIM globally, where we'll be discussing the global impact of BIM and few case studies on the samples of BIM projects around the world. I'm gonna try my best to cover everything I can within the time we've got, and at the end of the session, we're gonna have a live Q&A again. This is our second live session in this course. There's only one last one after this, and you will be receiving certificate of completion after if you finish the course. If you notice, our presentation format today is a little different than our presentation format last lesson. That's because I'm still in the testing stage of our courses and I'd like to try what works the best. It would really help me greatly if you can email me or comment me some feedbacks on this course so I can make the next ones better and better. Now, if you have any questions while we're discussing, you can comment it on our discussions. I'll be reading all of it during our short break after this lesson and answer it on our live Q&A. If you're on your course page, just click the discussions button in the top right corner of your page. If you're on YouTube live page, you can directly comment it on our live stream. And if you're watching a replay of this course, you can still type in some of your questions on September 6th, I'll be hosting another Q&A session where I'll be answering as many of it as I can. Anyway, let's start with today's lesson. Our first topic is the BIM industry. I'd like to cover here some well-needed information for you to kick off your BIM career. So last week we discussed the different specializations in BIM, and now we'll be covering the different roles they play and their responsibilities. First, we have your beginner BIM professional, the BIM technicians. As we've said in our last lesson, they're the equivalent of draftsman or CAD draftsman for BIM. They can either be modeler or a detailer and documenter. For larger companies, detailers and documenters can also be two different jobs, so that's possible too. They work under a specific discipline. Some general examples of these disciplines could be architecture, structural, MEPF, interiors, construction, fabrication, etc. Your BIM technicians are directly guided by the BIM designers they are assigned on, and they have different tasks depending on where they're assigned. For the modeler, for example, they're the ones responsible for modeling the project. They have to make sure at all times that all the entities in the model are complete. They also have to maintain the cleanliness of the model and ensure that no unnecessary lines are left in the project, especially in the model views. And even if the models go through Q&A by their designers and managers, they still have to make sure at all times that everything is modeled correctly and that they're using the proper standards to avoid rework. As for the detailers, they generate and draft detail and drafting views. They're in charge of doing anything that needs manual detailing and drafting, like legends, notes, some construction, or in some cases, fabrication and construction details. For some projects, we choose not to highly detail the model, so in those cases, we just put some of these details manually inside the BIM software. The detailers are also in charge of detailing the sheets and views to prepare for the final drawing sets. Now, for our documenters, the documenters are responsible for, documentation and information input in the model. For example, if the designer would like some data embedded in a specific object, like if an electrical engineer would like some specifications on a light bulb to be embedded in the light bulb object, like specific manufacturer, brand, wattage, lumens, price, etc. The documenters are also in charge of generating the required views for the documentation, such as floor plans, elevations, sections, etc. They also prepare the data schedules and they also prepare the complete sheet sets. Again, all these are done with the instructions of their designated designers. Now let's go to our BIM designers. BIM designers are the architects, engineers, and designers in the project. So their roles depend on their design disciplines, such as architecture, structural engineering, etc. Their responsibilities are still that of the traditional designers. It's only the tools and workflows that changed, and some additional tasks on the standard management. Uh, Here's a sample of some of their tasks. Uh, they're responsible for design and conceptualization, material specifications, developing and documenting details to communicate design intent. They have to work with others to define the scope of work. By others, I mean the other team members and the other stakeholders in the project. They have to communicate the project goals and milestones and exercise skills of persuasion and negotiation on design issues, especially when they're dealing with their clients. They also have to manage the BIM technicians and assign tasks to them. They have to make sure that models are correctly done at all times. They have to validate BIM models, check for interferences and clashes, and they also have to revise the coordinates accordingly. They have to monitor the quality control for the programs. They have to provide over the shoulder training, developing and shadowing to BIM technicians. They also have to prepare design, rendering, sketches, diagrams, schematics, and working drawings to illustrate design solutions. They have to follow project development and production standards, and they have to coordinate with BIM technicians and prepare technical working drawings. So let's go to our BIM experts. The BIM experts are mostly the ones in the managerial positions, although there are a lot of BIM experts that stay in the design positions and also some in the sales positions. But we'll discuss their most common roles here. Mostly they're project team managers, coordinators, and discipline managers. So here's an overview of some of their responsibilities. Uh, Usually they work directly with the project managers or the PA on the initial model setup. They have to review and confirm design team project stakeholders compliance. By that we mean that they have to make sure that everyone is complying with the standards. They also have to do troubleshooting and work with the project manager and client to clear proper work scope in the project. And as for the coordinators, well, they're the ones who coordinate, publish, and verify all necessary configurations required for seamless integrations of BIM models and facility data. They facilitate BIM coordination meetings with lead design and disciplines the BIM managers. They're also involved in meetings with clients and contractors to reestablish or establish relationships with the players in the project they're responsible for. As for the discipline manager, they basically manage the discipline designers, the BIM designers. So they manage the team's day-to-day tasks, manage their disciplines models, coordinates with other discipline managers for their models, and ensures that everyone in their discipline follow the BIM execution plan. They have a lot more responsibilities, and it all depends a lot of things like project types, company roles, team collaboration methods, softwares used. Anyway, last but certainly not the least, the BIM expert strategists. Us guys have varying roles in the industry, but mostly we act as the puppeteers. We strategize the workflow, standards, project execution, BIM migration, trainings, continuing advancement, technology advancement, sales and marketing development, and many others depending on the need. We always need to stay on our toes. The most important quality you should have to be a strategist is you have to know how to solve problems. You have to have that itch to solve problems. You have to have the eye to identify problems and solve them 80% of the time before they even appear. That's also the hardest part to learn. And most of the time, it comes from experience, although for some, it's innate. As BIM expert strategists, some of their responsibilities are planning and managing business development activities using collaborative multi-point strategy in order to acquire new clients. They also have to constantly improve knowledge of BIM track, the industry, and its stakeholders. They're responsible for handling the whole BIM department. They have to author the company BIM standards. They have to manage shared BIM resources. They have to also manage standard BIM elements. They also have to. They're also responsible for strategizing new projects, the BIM execution plans. They have to train team members to make sure they comply with the established BEP at all times. They have to work with all project stakeholders to formulate standards and execution for the project. As for the BIM migration strategists, they work with companies who want to migrate to BIM. They usually assess the current hardware, software, employees, business, and financial capabilities of the company, and then they formulate a migration plan depending on the company requirement and compatibility. They also provide the training to migrate personnel to BIM as needed, and a lot of them also provide the suppliers for the new equipments that would be needed in their migration. Our responsibilities are as strategists are not limited to what I just said. There are some circumstances that we have to go out of our way to solve other company problems or team problems. Strategists are very important for companies, especially when they're new to BIM, since they can help avoid unnecessary risks and mistakes. The bigger BIM companies always have a number of them at their disposal, although they're quite hard to find and fairly expensive to employ. There are some like me who serve as consultants who are a bit easier to reach. My advice for design and construction firms always is to try and train one of their own to that level, or to get themselves or as owners so they can maximize the full potential of BIM in their companies. So let's see some team hierarchy samples. Here's a sample for a project with different companies for different disciplines. As you can see, they are required to assign one lead coordinator to manage all of them. Some facility owners get their own. I mean, the clients get their own lead BIM coordinator to manage all their contractors. Usually, the lead BIM coordinator is a strategist too. Sometimes these lead coordinators are not hired by the main client but is employed or hired by the main contractor. Another thing you'd notice is that for every discipline, there's a coordinator. This is very important when there are different companies working in one project, so everything is coordinated properly. This example is mostly for larger projects. That's why there are more members. And here are some other examples. On the left, you'll see a hierarchy of a design and build firm when they handle a project all by themselves. And on the center, there's a sample of a single discipline firm. There are also times, as you can see on the right, there are also times when the designer themselves are the project manager, or they're also handling collaboration. This is mostly for the smaller projects uh, like residentials or the low-rise commercial buildings. We'll talk more about how teams are formed in our last lesson, but for now, let's talk about the softwares. There's a myriad of softwares in BIM, and honestly, it's not like when you just had CAD where you didn't have to choose from so many of them, and it does make you feel a bit overwhelmed if you're new to the game. In BIM, you have to keep in mind that different softwares solve different problems. Some do very specific tasks very good, and there are some that are more multifaceted and have the capability to multitask. So let's go see a list of all of them depending on their main use. Some of these have multiple capabilities, but I focused this list on the software's specialty. First, for BIM execution planning, these softwares help the workflow for planning the BIM project execution. You have here LOD planner. Usually, LOD means LOD means level of development, which we're gonna talk about later. Next, for content management, in BIM, it's not just lines and geometry. We also have objects or components. These can be preloaded with manufacturer data or custom made for projects. And for that, we need content management softwares. Also, for some, they prefer not to use them, but for larger projects, I advise using them since it gets tricky to handle manually. Also, a lot of these softwares connect you to manufacturers where you can download BIM component models of their products. This also makes for accurate designs. For this, we have Unify, Avail, BIM Object, BIM and Co, and MagicCAD. And now for BIM modeling. These are the main softwares we use for BIM. Although there's one here that's not really fully BIM capable, which is SketchUp. I don't really advise using this unless it's just for schematics because of its limited capability in embedding information. Anyway, the others in this area are Revit, BricsCAD, Rhinoceros, Dassault Systems, SolidWorks, ArchiCAD, Katia, Tekla, Allplan, Bentley, and Vectorworks. Now, algorithmic design is basically task automation via scripts. These applications, though, are usually based on visual scripting rather than text scripting. They help automate design workflows and some other tedious tasks. You have a choice of Edgewise, Hyper, Dassault Systems, Grasshopper, or Dynamo. As for performance analysis softwares, they analyze the design performance of a building. For this, we have Green Building Studio, SIA, STADPro, Zephira, Robot Structural Analysis, and Ladybug. Now, since building information models are usually created by many stakeholders in order for everyone to stay on the same page, these models need to be shared through one collaboration app. These BIM collaboration tools allow teams to share and access the right models at the right times. So here we have Drofus, Tekla BIM Site, Allplan BIM Plus, Trimble Connect, and BIM 360. Now for this next tool is the BIM validation. When combining 3D models from multiple project teams, issues can often be discovered. These problems can be solved in the virtual model at a much lower cost compared to after the construction teams have started to work on site. Sometimes there are thousands of issues to track. This is why the following BIM checking or workflow tools are essential to gain the true benefits of BIM. For this, we have BIMX, BIM Collab, Solibri, Navisworks, BIM Assure, Revisto, and BIM Track. For pre-construction, 4D and 5D. By 4D and 5D, we'll be talking about that on our next lessons. Estimating schedule workflows is an important benefit of BIM. Model elements can be scheduled over time to identify phasing and sequencing challenges. For this, we have Assemble Systems, dProfiler, CostX, Synchro, Vico Office, and M2. Now, after building the project virtually, it's now time to break dirt and build the real thing. Many of the collaboration tools previously listed are also used through the construction phases, but the following tools are those focused more on the construction side of BIM. We have here Alice Technologies, Grit, and Verity. For this last one, the I in BIM now comes alive. And building information models can be used for the entire life of the building. These tools help building owners quickly find important information at the right time to gain efficiencies when operating their built assets, like Onoma, Ecodemos, ViewOps, UBIM, and Archibus. Now, since I know all of this is so overwhelming and all, I'd like to talk about my preferred softwares. So you might be able to understand more about that than what I just said. So, for BIM execution planning, I like to go in with a little help from LOD Planner to help making the BEP manual. As for the content management, I always go for BIM Object. It's free, they have thousands of downloadable objects, and they also maintain and develop branded BIM products for manufacturers. So you can see brands and their different objects in there, and you can use it on your projects, which makes for more precise modeling. For BIM modeling, I use Revit 70% of the time because it's, in my opinion, the most flexible and efficient to use, especially for architecture. It also has many other capabilities, and it's one of the most interoperable with most softwares, and it has a lot of add-ins that makes the software collaboration easier. I use Tekla with bigger and more structurally complex projects, especially with Steelworks since it's got more steel detailing capability. And it's also compatible with Revit, so you can use that with each other. Now, for the algorithmic design, I use Dynamo to automate some tasks in Revit because it's directly connected. And my go to software for collaboration is BIM 360. Since if you've noticed, my workflow is almost all Autodesk. This makes sure everything I use is interoperable. That's easiest to deal with because there won't be any data loss during the collaboration. Also, BIM 360 has great compatibility with other softwares in case a partner is using other softwares for their design. And as for BIM validation, Revit also has a built-in validation tools. But if I need to also do some construction scheduling and cost scheduling with the validation, I use Navisworks. Although Revit also has costing tools, so that's also a plus. As for construction management, I use Navisworks mostly, but some projects call for some more scheduling options. With that, I use Alice Technologies. It's a more detailed scheduling software because it just focuses on the scheduling of the construction. And for the facilities management, I advise facility owners to use UBIM, although that's entirely their choice, depending on their preference. This is mostly my softwares of choice. Some just change and get added for projects and clients that require them. Or sometimes, if we need more detailed functionality, this is what I was saying last lesson. It's better to know the place of softwares in BIM so you know how to mix and match your softwares depending on the need. So you can expect that these are also the softwares we're going to be learning about in the BIM program if you decide to push on. You can learn any number of these softwares depending on the need of the different courses. Anyway, as you saw, I have a particular preference for BIM, for Revit, I mean. So let's talk a bit about it. I like using it because it's multidisciplinary. Uh, it has tools for every discipline, for from architecture to structural to MEP to construction. Revit has it. It has the best interoperability, in my opinion, and they develop tools to expand that further. And every year they just bring out more and more interoperability tools that you can use a lot of different BIM softwares with it without hassle. It's also multifaceted, so you can run Revit for many BIM tasks. For small to medium projects, actually, you won't even need to use other softwares. You could just buy Revit and you could just go along with it. It also has great value for money since you're able to use it for many different tasks. You save on buying many different softwares for different tasks. These softwares are not very cheap, so it's good that you have value for money in one of your chosen softwares. It's also very efficient. A lot of BIM tasks in one software makes the work easier since you won't have to switch here and there too much. And it provides great cloud collaboration. Autodesk provides best options for cloud collaboration. They have lots of tools that would connect you to the project no matter where you are. And another thing is, it's one of the easiest to learn. It's very user friendly and very beginner friendly. Most of the time, I advise my students to learn Revit first, and then after that, when they're very comfortable with it, they can jump onto the other more detailed software modeling like Tekla. Here are some functionalities of Revit in BIM. So we use it for design and documentation, analysis, visualization, multidiscipline coordination, concrete reinforcement, design to steel workflows, design documentation, structural analysis. You can also use it to make smarter decisions. Sorry. Connect design to detailing, prepare for fabrication, for better communication, integrated design, analysis, documentation, fabrication. So let's go to our next subject, the concept of BIM maturity levels and BIM level compliance has become the accepted definition of what criteria required for BIM compliance by companies. There are four levels measuring BIM for the maturity levels of each company: 0 to 3. The maturity levels are the construction supply chain's ability to operate and exchange information. Level 0 is the unmanaged CAD, including 2D drawings and text with paper based or electronic exchange of information, but without the common standards and processes. Essentially, this is a digital drawing board. Level 1 is a mix of 2D and 3D information. It's also known as managed CAD. This may include 2D information and 3D information, such as visualizations or concept development models. Project teams use here common data environments to collect, manage, and share all project data. Then we have level 2. Level 2 BIM, so widely known as the mandated level, it is also what we call collaborative BIM level. Level 2 adds additional dimensions such as time management and budget calculations. The 3D models with project data are shared using a common file type like IFC. In this way, they're able to put together a unified BIM model. The design information is shared through a common file format, which enables any company to combine that data with their own in order to make the federated BIM model that's used for coordination and project communication. This level of BIM utilizes 4D construction sequencing or 5D cost information. Then we have level 3. BIM level 3 is the goal for the construction industry. It's the main point, is the attainment of full integration of BIM. They also call this IBIM. By IBIM, they mean integrated BIM of the information in the cloud-based environment. A single collaborative online project model with construction sequencing, cost, and project lifecycle information. This is sometimes, this is most of the time the goal for every company that wants to migrate to BIM. Although at this point, it's not that easy to achieve because there are a lot of companies or other, say, if you're gonna partner up with other companies that don't have the BIM capability, you're gonna be forced to go backwards to BIM level 2 if you're already on the level 3. Anyway, Sorry. You're probably wondering what I was talking about when I say 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, and 7D. And I mean, you're probably saying, well, CES isn't the common physical paradigm only until 3D. No, maybe I should have put this in the beginning. I'll take note of that next time. I'm sorry, but here it is. We have the dimensions of BIM. 2D means vectors. These are the CAD flat drawings. It's like they exist in the flat land. They're the 2D drawings and documentations. Then we have the 3D, which is the visualization model. This is usually the common 3D model that you see. It could be existing conditions models, the laser scanning models, ground penetration conversions, animations, renderings, walkthroughs, BIM driven prefabrication, clash detection, and laser accurate BIM driven site layout. Then we have 4D, which is the time model. Here we get the project facing simulations, visual validation for payment approval, designs, detailed simulation installation. Then we have the cost model. This is where the real time conceptual modeling and cost planning is, quantity extraction to support detailed cost estimates, trade verifications from models, and value engineering. Then we have energy models, which is the sustainability model. We do here the conceptual energy analysis, detailed energy analysis, life cycle energy performance of the building, lighting and daylighting analysis, sun and shadow studies, airflow analysis, climate analysis, and solar radiation analysis. And facilities management is usually the from the facility management applications. They're BIM embedded O&M manuals, computerized building database for record renovation and maintenance. For the 3D visualization models, as I said, these are what it's included with. And then the 4D model, which is the time model, is mostly the construction scheduling or the design scheduling. This is the goal of many contractors, that everything is collaborative, and you can actually train your workers to use the tablets to see your BIM models, so everything is more accurate when they are fabricating or when they are constructing your building. Then we have 5D model, which is the cost model. Here we have the scheduling. And then the 6D models, which is the energy model. Here we have building performance analysis, or BPA, lighting analysis, solar analysis, heating and cooling loads. And then we have 7D model, which is facilities management. Some facility managers don't even have to use other softwares. They can just use Revit directly. I mean, sometimes we don't even have to turn to UBIM. We could just give them Revit, and they usually go with it because it actually has the same functionality, except it doesn't look as simple from an owner's point of view. But if usually they have the BIM technicians themselves, we just go with Revit for facility management. Makes running a large building easier, honestly, especially if you've got future renovation plans. Another important aspect of BIM we should talk about is the LOD. It can mean two different things, but it's basically the levels of refinement used as a measure of service level required in BIM modeling. The level of detail when you is when you're talking about the graphical representation of an object, and the level of development is when you're discussing both the graphical representation and the information of the object. The level of detail goes by this sorry goes by these standards. The most common is the AEC UK BIM protocol, which is the graded component creation. For those of you who are familiar with CAD, you're probably familiar with this too, because this is mostly what we used before in CAD. For G0, it's a symbolic placeholder representing an object. For the concept, it's a simple placeholder with the absolute minimum level of detail to be identifiable. And for the G2, it contains relevant metadata and technical information and is sufficiently modeled to identify type and component materials. For G3, this is the rendered, so it's identical to G2 version if scheduled by annotation, but it differs only in 3D representation. Now let's go to the level of development. The level of development measures the certainty, confidence, and amount of information which has been implemented in the model. The graphical representation of the object does not necessarily need to develop with LOD because now the emphasis is added on the information. So LOD may mean for LOD 100 there is a chair or there is this thing. For LOD 200, there is a chair that has a nominal space requirement of 500 by 500 millimeters. Or in general terms, there is a thing about this size. For LOD 300, there is a chair with armrests and wheels. And for general terms, there is a thing with these functions and options. LOD 400, you have to put in the manufacturer and the model number, or it is this specific thing. And LOD 500, you have to put in the manufacturer, model number, supplier, and the date it was purchased or delivered. So visually, this is what LODs look like for a level of development. For LOD 100, it's usually done in the pre-design when you're just trying to space things out. The model element may be graphically represented in the model with a symbol or other generic representation. Information related to the model element can be derived from other model elements. Then you have LOD 200. Usually these are the schematic design. This is the level of detail in schematic design. The model element is graphically represented within the model as a generic system, object, or assembly with approximate quantity, size, shape, location, and orientation. Then we have LOD 300. Well, usually this is used for detailed design where it's graphically represented within the model as specific system, and non-graphic information may also be attached to the model element. Then there is the LOD 350. This is for the construction drawings. This is the model element here is graphically represented within the model as a specific system, and non-graphic information is also attached to the model, definitely attached to the model. Then we have LOD 400, which usually we use for implementation documents and fabrication documents. These are the documents that are much more detailed in terms of graphical representation and information. So usually this is the point when you can get an accurate cost estimate. Then we have LOD 500, which is the as-built drawings. Now we're gonna switch to the global BIM. I'm gonna show you an incredible resource made by the BICP, or BIM Innovation Capability Program. They made a map that helps us coaches and new learners to know more about where different countries are in terms of BIM integration. Anyway, let's go. Where is it? Oh, here it is. So if you can see here, you can uh, you can click these little markers and it shows you an update on where a certain country is with their BIM. So let's try to explore. So let's see Singapore. For Singapore Building and Construction Authority had a roadmap for BIM that pushed its construction industry to be using it widely by 2015. I actually worked on a project in Singapore, and for them, you're required to do the models in BIM, and you're required to submit your models to the government for permitting. It's not like here in the Philippines where you're just gonna submit the papers. There, you have to submit the BIM models, so they really check it out. They're really specific on that because they also want to make a BIM model of the whole Singapore. Then let's see, we have here in Brazil. See, Brazil's National Department of Transport Infrastructure is embracing BIM in the hope of it assisting in achieving a 30% cost savings across the building life cycle. And say here in Finland. In Finland, the Confederation of Finnish Construction Industries decided in 2002 that BIM would be a core element of their proposed changes to the sector. Senate Properties has mandated since 2007 for all design software packages to pass IFC class certification. And let's say in New Zealand, the McGraw-Hill Smart Market Report in 2014 for the business value of BIM in Australia and New Zealand details that despite BIM being relatively new in these countries, that there is a widespread recognition to its value. So if you're gonna try to visit this map, I'm gonna attach it to your course where you can visit this, and you could just try to explore. So we can just now all together say that it's not just the BIM companies that are switching to BIM. Whole governments are pushing their way into the BIM process. So to get you more insight on how it is in the field, I've prepared some case studies of iconic buildings that use BIM. Our first one is the One World Trade Center, Freedom Tower. This is designed by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. This was the first building that replaced the Twin Towers. The second one came in a little bit later. There was quite a challenge in constructing this, as one of that is that it was the time when BIM was still not widely used. I think it was around 2004 that they started designing this. Another was the height. It totaled to 1,776 feet, and they also had to consider the integration with entire below grade 1 World Trade Center. So at first, they were only going to use Revit for the lower floors for the integration, but while they were doing it, they slowly realized the benefits of BIM. Revit was used as a primary BIM design platform. It was in the days when Revit still wasn't as evolved as it is right now. But Autodesk provided direct assistance in training the team, considering the project scale. Autodesk also developed technological solutions throughout this partnership that actually helped advance Revit. Those solutions were integrated with the Revit software, and it's still being used now, actually. Also, because of Autodesk's help, JB&B engineers were able to use Revit MEP after just 3 weeks of training. One fun fact about this BIM case study is that they used virtual cameras in the model to see if the building elements, particularly the columns, blocked crucial views. As for the impact, here are some feedbacks straight from the designers themselves, taken from that time. So, Traditionally, in the construction document submittal process, we spend an enormous amount of time on quality assurance tasks. But with Revit architecture, we can bring the 3D production model into the conference room, a place where it never existed before, that enables us to spend more time on the collaboration and design and less on the process of coordination. We used to gather around the drawings on the table with a box of red pencils whenever we had to coordinate a very complex or tight-fitting areas of the building, such as lobby or mechanical room. Now we can open the model on a plasma screen and zoom right to whatever area we're working on. Instead of highlighting the issue in red marker and getting an answer in a week, we got real-time results. BIM opened up new methods of communication with the contractors and subcontractors, methods that were unheard of a few years ago. We were able to incorporate the architectural model into our structural model and easily see if any clashes exist. In particular, and as a direct result of using Revit MEP, we saw a drastic reduction in change orders. That's where MEP engineers typically lose the most time. And going from a 2D computer-based environment to BIM has really transformed the way we work and make everything more efficient. We're now able to coordinate the MEP services right up front with the architect and structural engineer. So just imagine the kind of impact it cost them. Anyway, here's our next one. We have the Shanghai Disneyland Resort Storybook Castle. This is designed by Walt Disney Imagineering using building information modeling. The challenge of the resort of the Storybook Castle was to create a reasonable design companion to the Walt Disney World Resort Cinderella Castle, while also including a much more modern, complex interior, including a central double helical staircase, restaurant, fountain pumps, boat ride system, and its maintenance facility in a children's salon, among other features. And as they said, this is the most complex castle they've ever done. In many disciplines, 142 in all, including architects, engineers, subcontractors, worked in opposite sides of the globe to design the project together. How they used BIM. The Enchanted Storybook Castle was designed entirely in 3D. The WDI team used a building information modeling process that took cloud collaborations to new heights. And although the architectural team made the conversion to Revit software, the structural and MEP disciplines continued to use AutoCAD to facilitate data exchange between the disciplines. Also, as said by Eric Anderson, their project integration manager, another challenge was that design about halfway through had to be localized in Shanghai. So they had the two sides of the world in the workflow. So one of the things they did to disseminate information across the team was to make a BIM information diagram to show who is responsible for what and how their information is being passed down across the globe. And if you can see the impact, it allowed easier collaboration, less rework. The Shanghai Disneyland Resort project had nearly 3,000 clashes identified over a 6-month period before issuing the tendering package as a result of using BIM. Also, they got the 2014 AIA Top Technology in Practice Award for delivery, process, and innovation. And also, you don't have to worry about everything in here. I'll be giving you the PowerPoint in PDF format at the end of the course. So if you finish the course, I'll be giving you a copy of the PowerPoint. And for our last one, this is the Fondation Louis Vuitton in Paris from architect Frank Gehry. So, as for the challenge, since this was a Frank Gehry design, you'd expect it to be very challenging. And he delivered. The museum was covered by glass sails supported on stainless steel mullions upon the structural steel and glulam mainframe. It really required complex engineering. The Gary partners delivered 3D requirements via digital project. The digital project software was a software developed directly by Gary Technologies. Then into the workshop, in addition to the normal CAM and 2D information, BDS supplied 3D drawings of all node blocks so that during the fabrication, the surveying uh, equipment could be utilized in maintaining tolerances required for the project. In order to keep the process for the aluminum cladding panels fabricated acceptable, both economically and technically, detailer company Puma developed specific software tools which resulted in a highly automated production process. Also, Tekla and Grasshopper models combined via Open API with almost no additional fine tuning. And they also used cloud based BIM collaboration. As for the impact, it enabled concurrent design. Advanced parametrics brought the project to the next level. They also had automated CNC process, which completed the fabrication chain faster and increased clarity and project understanding. They have faster cycle times and more automated, higher quality fabrication processes. They also won the BIM Excellence Award by American Institute of Architects in 2012 and the UK Tekla BIM Awards in 2013. So here's a few other examples of BIM projects around the world before we wrap up. So here you have the Gherkin in London, the National Museum of Qatar by Gary Technologies again, New Karolinska Solna University Hospital in Sweden. This project is Sweden's biggest BIM project. Then you have One Island East in Hong Kong. This is the most extensive BIM-based construction project of its time. The quantities extracted from BIM are used for tendering and they're a recipient of the 2008 AIA Technology and Practice Awards. Also, we have the Blue Planet National Aquarium in Kastrup, Denmark. Then we have the Coca-Cola Place, previously known as ARC. This is the first completed BIM high-rise in Australia. Then we have Metro Office and Mall in Santo Amaro District in Sao Paulo. And then Cairns Complex Research Laboratory at Brock University at St. Catharines. Then we have Burj Khalifa. I think everybody knows what this is. Then the Italian Pavilion in 2015 by Nemesi and Partners. The PNR de Uithoft-Utrecht by KCAP Architects and Planners. The Lindley Center. New hospital project in Ostfold in Oslo, Norway. Then we have the Marina Bay Sands in Singapore. And lastly, we have the James B. Hunt Library in Raleigh, North Carolina, United States. Okay, so let's try to wrap our lessons up. So in the first lesson, we learned about what BIM is, its benefit to the construction industry, and a short insight on your career and business opportunities in BIM. And on this lesson, we got deeper and talked about the BIM industry, the team structuring for different kinds of projects, the roles and responsibilities, softwares, level of details and developments, BIM maturity levels, BIM dimensions, the level of BIM migration around the globe, and some project case studies on some iconic buildings where BIM was used, how it was used, and what impact it had on them. This leaves us only with one lesson more. And in our last lesson, we will be diving into the BIM process and discuss the BIM cycle, or the BIM in different phases of the project life cycle, where we'll discuss project management planning, schematic phase, design phase, construction phase, as-built planning, and O&M turnover. And we will also be discussing your roadmap to building your career or business in BIM, what routes you can take, what options you have, what you can do to improve yourself and better your career and your chosen specialization. So make sure to finish the course and receive the certification and the learning resources you've requested, plus some other perks. As for now, let's take a short break to refresh a bit. And while we're on that break, do comment some of your questions in our lessons, and I'll be back to answer those in our Q&A session.
It's a syndicate at night, blasting playpen in the daytime. Goosebumps rise at 9 and settle back down at sunrise. Cut the cord at noon and say you'll be back soon. Tut tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Tata, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. It's some booze, fuel, tea, tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Tut, tut, no worries. Please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. Let's get girly. Girly.
Hi guys, I'm back. Sorry I took a long time. Let's start with our Q&A. So, we have our first question from Eric Flor de Liza. Where did you work as BIM expert? What projects have you handled? I worked in many different companies ever since I jumped to be a BIM consultant. I'm mostly hired to manage projects with big clients. I have a number of industrial projects under my belt, but these kinds of projects are always bound by non-disclosure agreements since they need very specialized design and they're protecting their property. Although I can't talk about them in general, so I worked with a team to manage BIM for a large milk and drink factory in the Philippines. I've also worked in a feed mill plant also in the Philippines, but both of these are foreign owned and the clients we had are also foreigners. So I also worked on multi-use buildings, quite a couple of them, and a condiment factory in Malaysia, a printer company in Thailand, a hospital, and among other things, and a lot of residential projects. From Messed Up Girl, I don't think I understood your first question. Since I'm from Pakistan, my question is why it is happening to adopt BIM very difficult here. Uh, did you mean in your question why is it hard to adopt BIM in Pakistan? In many countries, it's also very slow. Most of the companies I worked with are actually foreign companies. The smaller local companies, like here in the Philippines, usually are afraid of the initial investment since it's really scary when no one is assisting you in your migration and no one is educating you with what you actually need. And they're right to be scared because sometimes when you invest on the wrong things with BIM, it doesn't usually work as efficiently. So that's why we always say that before you migrate to BIM, you always have to look for your BIM strategist to help you in your migration so you don't make many mistakes in the investments. Anyway, for your second question, yes, it's very possible. You can use BIM in the residential designs. I myself finished residential designs in record time. Maybe I'll show a few examples in the next lesson of my projects. Um, for the next one, from Eduardo Robes Jr., what is your outlook for BIM in the Philippines, especially that we are now in the so called golden age of infrastructure? What are your thoughts about how we are now adopting this new BIM process? Well, a lot of the BIM companies here that adopt BIM are usually partnered with foreign companies. There are more BIM jobs here now because of the outsourcing framework, but the local companies are still very reluctant unless they have foreign partners that want to partner with them and require BIM, and then that's when they're forced to do it. Mostly, as I say, they're a bit kuripot in Tagalog. But so far, when educated, they're very responsive. So I really hope that we get to a point where there is a government stand on BIM, so we can really require companies to use BIM instead of CAD. Because looking at it uh, from a designer's perspective, it could be a lot easier, especially if you're just gonna be submitting BIM models to the local government to so they can check your permits, and it's gonna be much easier because if there comes a problem in that project, it's very much easier to see, and especially for the politicians here, corruption is rampant. So when you use BIM, you can easily see in your schedules if the calculations are wrong or right. Anyway, for our other question is from Miguel Lorenzo Ardina. Hello, you said earlier that Tekla and Autodesk Revit can work together. Can I rely solely on Tekla structures when it comes to structural detailing instead of using Revit structure? Yes, very much. You can use Tekla structures for your structural modeling, detailing, and other structural uh, designs you need. And then it could integrate very well with Revit. So I think that's all for our questions. So that's it for our Q&A today. I hope you learned a lot on our lessons, and if you have any more questions, just comment it on the replays or on the discussions on our course page. And please, if you have any feedbacks on this course, please tell me. If you got bored or if you got something out of it, please tell me. I really would love to hear from you and know how I can make this course and the next courses better. Anyway, for now, I'm gonna say goodbye. I'll see you all on our last lesson on Thursday, same time. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll be uploading other career, business, and BIM tips soon. But for now, I have to say goodbye, guys. So, see you on Thursday.